Hi, I'm Ed Fuquay, Young Adult Librarian Extraordinaire here at Woonsocket Harris Public Library.
And I'm Miss Gabby from the Children's Department.
This is our second part of our Star Wars talk.
Star Wars.
Yes, that'll be a totally different conversation. Yes, we started on May the 4th because it's sort of International Star Wars Day. Now we're continuing it a week later. We're talking about Star Wars in a public library, not only because libraries carry a lot of videos, but because the world of Star Wars and the world of books are very closely entwined with each other. Like, did you know the first Star Wars book came out before the first movie?
I really didn't. I thought it all started from a movie.
Well, it did start with the movie. The problem is he wanted to build up publicity for it because the movie was really expensive and everybody was terrified it was going to bomb.
Wow.
So a novel based on the original screenplay was released to bookstores several months before the film came out.
Wow. So it kind of just gave him like a inside look on how it was
Yeah.
going to do.
And humorously, they mentioned things in that book because it's based on an early script that actually never appear again. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know
and
that.
in the prologue it says Luke Skywalker's story comes from the Journal of the Wills. What's a will? No one knows. To this day, George Lucas has never told any of us what he had in mind for that.
Wow.
There's also a brief thumbnail, half a paragraph sketch of how the Emperor took power, which is nothing like what we'll see in the prequel films.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of
That's
neat.
really awesome.
It's not the best book in the world, and it wasn't that exciting. It's actually seeing the visuals that makes Star Wars work. So anyway, Star Wars and books.
So I have a question
Yes.
about that. Do you think that people who read the book first, do you think that they had more of a lower expectation of the movie from reading it, you think?
I can honestly tell you I did. The
Okay.
book was not that exciting. I'd heard about the film, and I love science fiction, so I was very excited about it. I read the book, and the book is not that good.
So you kind of had a surprise coming for you when you watched the movie?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, the script is very shallow in a lot of ways. And the book doesn't add anything to it. It's just
Yeah.
exactly what you see on the screen. Actually seeing it is much more exciting. But even then, Star Wars wasn't my favorite movie. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't that exciting to me. My dad hated it. It wasn't until Empire Strikes Back I really fell in love with Star Wars.
Yeah.
I thought Empire Strikes Back made the whole universe seem broader and deeper, and everything that happened in the first film that seemed so shallow now suddenly became more important.
Yeah.
So I think Empire in a lot of ways is kind of what saved the Star Wars franchise, for me at least. I think a lot of fans consider Empire to be the best of the Star Wars films. So after the first set of films, they did Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
And then there was that period where nothing was coming out for a while, and the franchise is more or less dead. So last time we talked about how Timothy Zahn in Heir to the Empire revived Star Wars fandom and kept the universe going after Return of the Jedi.
Definitely.
And this kicked off what we now call the Star Wars Extended Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole cycle of books that came out. There are I don't know, over 100 books. There are several hundred comic books. There are computer games in every possible type genre. You can play Star Wars first-person shooters. You can play Star Wars combat simulators. You can play X-Wing simulators. They have MMORPGs sometimes.
Okay.
Every kind of game you can imagine has come out of Star Wars. Some successful, some not so successful. But so far as the books go, the Extended Universe was a long continuity. It was written by many authors. Zahn contributed several things, which several other writers did too.
Yeah.
And it was all more or less under the control of Lucasfilm and George Lucas. How much actual say he had, I don't know.
Yeah, because you were saying in the last episode how he would give them creative
Yeah, creative ideas and
Yeah.
things like that, yeah. Like in Heir to the Empire, Timothy Zahn wanted to introduce the Sith because they described Darth Vader as being Lord of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And he had ideas of what he wanted the Sith to be, and Lucas put his foot down and wouldn't let him use that.
So it kind of put a hold on all the ideas, and it kind of just
Yeah.
constructed it into one little.
But it
book.
pushed it more towards the vision that George Lucas had, which was, all for the better in the long run.
Okay.
The humorous part is, we still don't know what the Sith are after all these years. Many people have a strong idea about the Sith because of all the computer games
Yeah.
and the books and things like that. If you ask Star Wars fans, they'll often say the Sith are like a rival group of Force users that fight against the Jedi and so forth. But actually, all of that comes from things that are not in continuity. None of that is in the film.
Wow.
Yeah, when they did Force Awakens, everybody was saying, "Oh, is Snoke a Sith Lord? Is he a Darth somebody or other?"
So it's more you never know.
We don't know,
Yeah.
and because the new films never mention the Sith at all. There's a light side and the dark side of the Force, but there are no Sith.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Sith myself as a group of Force users, because that provides like a light and a dark, a yin and a yang, eternally opposing each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think from cosmologically, it makes for a lot of good storytelling standpoints.
Yeah, definitely.
But the movies haven't gone in that direction.
Sadly.
Yeah, well, the books went in a very different direction. The extended universe gave lengthy and interesting lives to Luke and Leia and Han and virtually all the characters that we know and love from the films. And a lot of things that happened to them in the books, it seemed more like the kind of things that we expected them to do.
Mm-hmm. Very predictable, kind of?
No, it's not really predictable, because the thing that Zahn and other people had to face is what you do when there's no empire to fight.
Okay.
So they had remains of the empire, because they ruled a lot of planets. So there were still a bunch of imperial, big, huge ships out there, and commanders and so forth, and evil governors of planets who refused to give up their power.
Yeah.
So there's some time mopping up operations. Supposedly it took 10 years to reconquer Coruscant, the capital.
Okay.
So they did a lot of that, and then eventually that was done with. And then the next they had alien threats come in. The Yuzan Vong came in from outside of known space. They were extremely dangerous alien race with biotech weapons that created a lot of problems, and the galaxy had to reunite against them. And so various other threats happened. But during the course of this, our heroes led, actual lives. If you stick to the movie continuity, Luke Skywalker, after Return of the Jedi, most people expected the Jedi would return. It's implied in the title. However, that wasn't what the filmmakers had in mind. In fact, the Jedi don't return.
Okay.
Luke apparently wanders around the galaxy gathering Jedi artifacts and things like that. And then he does found a school to train Jedi, but oops, they all got killed. And then he almost killed the one guy he probably should have killed and didn't. And then he started feeling sorry for himself, went to live on a planet for, 20 years or so. It's not that exciting a character arc for someone who seemed so cool when he was younger. I think most of us expected better from Luke. In the books, you get that Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the books, he continues to fight the good fight. He works very closely with the New Republic, the political organization that's formed mostly by Leia, to gather all the planets back together again and under the banner of freedom. He fights a lot of bad guys. He founds another Jedi Order, and he has lots of students. Humorously, some of the students do turn to the dark side, and some of them die horrible, tragic deaths. But he gets over it. He doesn't just go live on a planet for the rest of his life. He deals with it.
Yeah.
He's not perfect. He has his ups and downs. He makes mistakes, but he's constantly. Yeah, exactly. He's a very real person instead of a hermit living on a planet drinking blue milk.
Definitely.
So in the books, Han and Leia have 3 kids.
Okay.
They have Jason and Jaina, who are twins. And Jason does turn to the dark side. So to a certain extent, his story is like, Kylo Ren's story, except more interesting. We get to see it happen. We get to see him as a person before he turns. And he also turns because of choices that he makes rather than being influenced by, a dead guy from a previous film.
Yeah.
So his story is a tragedy when he finally dies. And they also have little Anakin, because naming kid Anakin never goes wrong. They raise 3 kids, and Leia and Han are really happy together.
Yeah.
The book's story is told in the Star Wars Extended Essential Reader's Companion. It's by Pablo Hidalgo. It lays out the arc of all the books, so you know what order to read them in, and you can tell the important ones from the not so important ones. You can skip over some of them. Some of the great things that happen in the extended universe that we never got a chance to see on film. First of all, Luke meets someone, falls in love, and gets married in the books.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, please tell me about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is awesome. Mara Jade Skywalker is like one of the best characters created in any book. She's just fantastic. They insert her into continuity into the original movies. It turns out that she was working for the Emperor. She was force sensitive and is raised and secretly trained by the Emperor himself.
Wow.
She becomes the Emperor's hand, his personal spy and assassin. In fact, because the Emperor was worried about Luke Skywalker, he sent her undercover as one of Jabba's dancing girls in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, that's the girl that's just like there?
And one of the girls is there. It's actually Mara Jade, we've now been told. However, Jabba suspected that she was not what she appeared to be and wound up exiling her from the palace by the time Luke had gotten captured. So she actually wasn't there. Luke has a Force vision in Heir to the Empire, which he sees what would have happened if Mara had been there.
Yeah.
And remember that sequence where like R2 spits out the lightsaber and Luke grabs it?
Yeah.
Destiny says it would have flown into Mara's hand instead, and she would have cut Luke in half at that moment. Yeah.
What?
She was that close to killing Luke. It was just a quirk of fate that she wasn't on Jabba's sandbars to kill him. So yeah, she's an assassin for the Emperor, so she's a bad girl, but she has a heart of gold. She's under the Emperor's control so badly that even after he's dead for years, she's still following his last orders. So she still has kill Luke Skywalker imprinted on her brain, and that becomes her motivation.
It's a compulsion kind of.
Yeah. She becomes a smuggler and a space pilot, and she's really good at that too. She works for Talon Card, one of the great extended universe characters. When she meets Luke for the first time and actually gets to know him, of course, things change.
Yeah.
And she realizes ultimately she can't go through with it. During the events of Heir to the Empire series, the Thrawn trilogy by Zahn, she gets to see what the dark side is really capable of, and it terrifies her. So she reforms. She goes on to work with Luke at the Jedi Academy, and she becomes a kick-ass character in her own right. This is her.
Oh, she's pretty.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's just fantastic.
I might have to give that a read.
Yeah.
I never knew about that. That's cool.
She's in several books. She starts out with Heir to the Empire, so read the Thrawn trilogy first.
Okay.
Absolutely read the Thrawn trilogy. But basically, the books give what many people think are better versions of what happened to the different characters. This is Han and Leia in their later years in the books.
Okay.
You know, yeah. Much like Luke, Han in the movies winds up, you know, he has a falling out with Leia over their kid, and he goes out and then spends the rest of his life kicking around the Millennium Falcon doing the same thing he was essentially doing when he was 20,
Yeah.
which isn't much of a life.
No, definitely not.
I guess he couldn't move into his parents' basement. But yeah, so the books give them these really long character arcs that are really fascinating.
Yeah.
A lot of it builds up to the Legacy of the Force series, which was written at a time when they knew that new movies were coming, so they're starting to wind down the characters. And Legacy of the Force is a whole set of stories in which characters have to deal with what's been happening to them in their lives. Like Boba Fett discovers that artificially aging himself to adulthood, as his father did to him when he was a kid, and then having placed parts of his body that had been blown off over the years, is basically his genetic code is eventually rebelling against him, and his body is simply falling apart.
Oh my
He's
God.
going to die, and there's nothing that can save him. So he has to look back at the legacy of the life that he's led, and again, make some really hard choices.
Yeah.
The characters in Legacy of the Force all face up to the choices that they made, and some good, some bad. Cool people die in Legacy of the Force, but I won't go into it. You have to read it yourself. So the extended universe books are really good. I think in a poll, Star Wars fans said the character they most wanted to see in the most recent set of movies was Mara Jade, and she didn't make the cut. She's officially not part of the Star Wars universe anymore. One thing that makes
What was that?
the books are not part of Star Wars. They were overwritten by the new continuity. The real Star Wars universe is the last 3 movies that we saw.
Okay.
So all the cool things that happened in the books now can never happen. They're officially out of continuity forever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's very sad. Many fans are upset. One thing that makes Star Wars fans just like tear out their hair is the fact that everyone's always talking about getting stronger female characters into Star Wars, and they had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
You know, Jason Solo, Han's daughter, who was a great character in her own right.
And they're just kind of slowly cutting them
Yeah,
off.
she's gone. Mara Jade Skywalker, gone. Ashoka Tano from the Clone Wars is a part of current continuity. She's been brought back. She may even appear in The Mandalorian. I'm not up in my current Star Wars news. Clone Wars also gave us Asajj Ventress
Okay.
as a nice, like, evil person. The books had Lumia, the Dark Lady of the Sith,
Wow.
who becomes one of the new people who's a bad guy or bad person in Legacy of the Force. A lot of very cool characters that we're not going to get a chance to see. The extended universe also had, it went off into weird tangents. One of my favorite lost Star Wars projects is Shadows of the Empire. Shadows of the Empire is a tie-in for a movie that was never filmed. It has everything going for it that a major Star Wars movie has. It has a full symphonic soundtrack. It has a couple of books. It has an audio book. It has action figures. It has a comic book series. It has everything except an actual movie.
All just for a book.
Just for a book,
That's
yeah.
cool.
It was Lucas' attempt to see what he could do or how much he could get away with without actually filming another Star Wars movie. And the answer was quite a lot. Shadows of the Empire is great. It introduces the Black Sun criminal organization ruled by Prince Zizor. He's a great, incredibly creepy villain. It's set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So Han is frozen in carbonite, and Luke is still getting over the whole losing my hand and my dad is evil thing. So a lot of the heavy lifting falls to Leia, Lando, and Chewbacca. And there are parts of this book where I really worried about them. Leia's a kid over her head, I thought. But she comes through in the end. She's Leia. But it's really well done. Zizor's, his chief-like sidekick is a woman named Guri, who appears to be an attractive human woman. She looks like a woman on the outside, but inside she's actually a droid who's programmed to kill.
You said she's a droid?
She's a droid given like a human flesh covering. She's literally like a Terminator.
That's cool.
And she's also programmed to serve Zizor in the Black Sun. And she's kind of an interesting character because when she encounters Luke in the book, he realizes that she's more than she appears to be. Not just that she's secretly a droid, but she also is fully conscious. She knows she's a droid, and she knows she's programmed to do horrible things and can't stop herself.
Wow.
Luke convinces her she can be more than she thinks she is.
Goes deeper then.
Yeah. There's a comic book sequel to this written by Steve Perry in which Guri escapes from the Black Sun and goes on a quest to have her brain reprogrammed so she can regain free will again. And asks a lot of important questions the Star Wars books don't often answer. What does it mean to be human? Will she always just be passing for human?
Wow.
It's strong stuff. It's really powerful stuff. And Gary's one of those characters who unfortunately has been like washed away by the tide of continuity. The extended universe continuity not only went forward into the future, but also backwards into the past. When BioWare had the rights to do a Star Wars game, they were told they couldn't step on the toes of anything that was going to happen to the main characters.
Yeah.
They finally said, well, forget that. We're going to go so far back in time, we can do whatever we want, and you can't stop us. You can't tell us this is wrong, because they were dealing with like the old Republic.
Yeah.
Some of the BioWare games were set like 4,000 years before the first film Star Wars movie.
Wow.
So they could use Star Wars vehicles and Star Wars weapons, and they had Jedi and Sith and so forth. In the days of the Old Republic, the Sith wasn't like two people, a master and an apprentice. No. In this one, the Sith controlled entire planets. They had hundreds of people that were training in the dark side. They had their own fleet of ships and so forth. Several alien races.
They found a loophole.
Yeah, it was before the Rule of Two was instituted. And there was a lot of great stuff aside from the computer games by BioWare that are very highly rated and recommended. They also did a series of books and a series of comic books. One of the books that I have on audio is Fatal Alliance. It's really good. It's a really nice standalone story. You want to taste what the Old Republic is like without having to worry too much about continuity. Essentially, a derelict spaceship is found, something important is taken off of it, and a Hutt is going to sell it at an illegal underworld auction. And so a Jedi, a Sith, and a Mandalorian all show up to try to seize this, either buy it or steal it. But it turns out to be so dangerous it can never be unleashed onto the galaxy. It'll destroy everyone. It's a really, really cool story. And again, it's standalone. The characters do appear in later stories, but you don't have to know anything about the Star Wars universe really to enjoy that. Now, when I said Star Wars was all about books, I don't just mean fiction books. The extended universe books are great, but they're not satisfied with merely that. This is one of the many Star Wars books on library shelves. This is the Encyclopedia of Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is basically the guide to everything, every character, every planet, every alien race, every piece of technology in all the BioWare games. It was essentially your guide to like several thousand years of history. The Star Wars stuff in the Old Republic happened so far in the past that for the most part you would assume that it could still be in continuity. But for whatever reason they've chosen to say that Old Republic is out of continuity. It shouldn't contradict anything, but when they made the last three films, they cleared the slate, both of the future and of the past. So now technically all the Old Republic stuff, even though new material is still coming out for the Old Republic, it's still being licensed, but technically it's all part of the Legends universe. The stuff that's not, the extended universe is now called Star Wars Legends. So if you see a book in the book that says Legends on it, that means it's not part of the movie continuity.
It's the Old Republic.
Yeah, it's the Old Republic and the extended universe kind of thing. Star Wars has always had like a crazy amount of detail put into it. This is one of several books detailing. This is a book on vehicles, I have a book on weapons, they have books on characters. More than anything you need to know about every ship, every land speeder, every sand skiff that appears in any of the Star Wars movies. They also have a second set of books with called cross sections, incredible cross sections, where you actually have internal diagrams of how all the vehicles work. It's amazing since none of them actually work. It's all completely fictional technology, but they put so much work into it, you really believe in them.
They like made it into a reality kind of.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's hard to believe it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And the ultimate for Star Wars fans in a lot of ways is the DK books. Doris Kindling puts out a bunch of really nice coffee table books. I highly recommend all of them if you're a fan. For cosplayers, this has been a godsend. They give you pictures of every important character and exactly what they wear, sometimes with close-ups of like weapons and jewelry and things like that. DK does this for the Marvel Universe, Pirates of the Caribbean Universe, even Lego Universe. And the Doris Kindling stuff just can't be beat. This is all official, right, from Lucasfilm Archive. They went and photographed the real costumes and things like that to get all these things.
That's
It's
awesome.
really well done. You find out stuff in the Doris Kindling books that sometimes don't even mention the films, but it's all continuity because they don't, unlike the extended universe, they don't make anything up. It all comes right from the notes that Lucasfilm gave them. And remember when I said the Star Wars spins off into so many different things?
Yes.
Well, they're required by Disney, for good or ill. Disney certainly allowed a lot of projects to happen that might not have happened before because they have a lot of money. So they've been very good at boosting Star Wars in that way.
Definitely.
And they give Star Wars fans a chance to do something they never thought they could do, which is actually visit the Star Wars universe. I know, if you can get to Disneyland or Disney World when they reopen, you'll be able to actually go to a planet in the Star Wars universe. The planet of Batu, which wasn't even really mentioned in the movies all that much, but it's there, trust me.
Yeah.
This is set before the last film on the planet Batu, and the characters in the book and tie in with the movie. And when you go to the Star Wars area of Disneyland or Disney World, it's set up like this planet, with the architecture, the stuff written with these weird, like sort of runic Star Wars language, and it's an interactive experience to go there. Every person who works there is a character in the Star Wars universe.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you can apparently stop any street vendor and ask him about himself. He can tell you all about what planet he was born from and that sort of thing.
That's cool.
They have actors playing Rey and an actor playing Kylo Ren.
They have Chewbacca.
They have a Chewbacca there. They will actually get like kids to help them on missions and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, one of the rebel spies would come up and can you go over there and like do this, and the kid will like do something for them, or turn them into the stormtroopers, which also happens with little kids sometimes. But yeah, and characters from there's an animatronic character whose name escapes me at the moment, who's the host of one of the rides they have there, who appears as a character in this book.
Wow.
So yeah, but everything in the Star Wars universe is represented by a book. I wanted to recommend the Star Wars audiobooks even more highly than I did previously. So I've got to mention all the cool things about them. Because they're all licensed, they're not only really good audiobooks by a really talented voice actor, but they have Star Wars music, they have sound effects. You can hear the droids beeping, you can hear the sound of lightsabers. It's really well done. It's an extremely immersive experience.
Yeah.
They have books out for virtually every one of the Star Wars books has its own audiobook, and they're all really well done. If you buy the 25th anniversary of Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, it actually comes with a writer's commentary track where he talks about it. Some of the stuff that I quoted from Timothy Zahn in the previous one and this one actually comes from that commentary track. He says things in there that he hasn't mentioned anywhere else because it's really well done. So yes, what do you think?
No, everything you told me, they're like stuff that I've never even heard before. Like I wouldn't have known any other way. So.
Yeah, it is a fantastic universe, and I'm sorry the extended universe is gone. They recently announced another big budget Star Wars film. Now the Skywalker saga is at an end, we don't know what direction the Star Wars movies will take.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is very popular on TV. There's definitely going to be more Mandalorians, probably more television projects. and there will be a feature film in the offing soon. They haven't said when it's going to be sent. I don't think they're getting the actors who just stopped doing Star Wars film to come back and do it again.
They're gonna have a whole new cast.
Yeah. Well, maybe like 30 or 40 years from now, we'll have, Rey as a grizzled old woman living as a hermit on a planet, and some snotty kid will come along wanting to be trained as a Jedi. That's what I'm waiting for. I'll try to live long enough to see that. But they could go in any direction. The Star Wars universe is huge. It has tremendous potential. They just need talented people getting the green light from above to go ahead and do cool stuff with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Any closing thoughts?
I just want to know what made you get so into it, into like the whole Star Wars like background.
It's kind of humorous because for a long time, although I liked Star Wars, I wasn't the biggest fan in the world. I'm a Star Trek fan. I tend to like hard science fiction more than quasi-fantasy science fiction.
Okay.
For me, Star Wars was like a combination of magic and science, like D&D and space, kind of. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't a huge fan. And I do a weekly role-playing game at the library when I can. And I've told the kids who come in for my gaming sessions, I can make an adventure in almost any universe you can name. And one of the things they said was Star Wars. They wanted to do a Star Wars adventure. So to write a role-playing game in that universe, I had to sit down and I grabbed the West End game books that I already read. And at that time, Wizards of the Coast, who also do D&D, had the license to Star Wars. So I got the recent licensed books and had to read, more and more background as to how the Star Wars universe works. And a lot of things kind of clicked for me I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah.
Creating a universe that's always in motion with things constantly going on. You have such a tremendous range of alien races, a lot of whom are kind of a blank slate. You don't know that much about them, so you can add things to their backstory. You can't make up new things about elves or dwarves in D&D. You can say new things about, a Trandoshan or something. That's not going to bother anyone because who knows really anything about them. There's all kinds of cool concepts, the Night Sisters and so forth, and things like that you can use that had never really been developed all that much on the screen. And the more I learned about Star Wars, the more I liked it. Which sadly made me kind of disappointed when the most recent movies came out. Because there's so much potential in that universe. It's somehow not living up to its potential.
That's awesome. I don't know. I think it's a cool thing to get into. I think it's cool to look into all like the backgrounds, the extended,
There's a lot there, and don't be intimidated.
No.
Yeah, there's so much you can jump in anytime. Like I said, the Thrawn trilogy, beginning with Heir to the Empire by Zahn. If you're curious about the extent of the universe, if you read the Thrawn trilogy and you don't like it, you probably won't like anything else in the extended universe.
We have the book here too,
We do.
right?
We have all of them.
So.
And they're available through the E-Zone, both as physical books and as audiobooks.
I'm gonna give that a...
As ebooks, rather. As ebooks and audiobooks. So it's definitely worth a try.
I think I'm gonna definitely get into it.
It's good, yeah. Mara Jade completely kicks butt. You'll love her.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, join me again next time for another episode of Book Talking. Bye.